नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवते उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवतिर्नैष्टिकी ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दं माधवम्। Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, Hare Krishna. Last time we had finished our discussion on Sarga, which is the primary creation done by Lord Vishnu. And Sarga ends with the creation of Lord Brahma. The second part of the creation, which is done by Brahma, is called Visarga. So we will discuss that today. So Sarga has three parts, which we have discussed: the creation of the Mahatattva, Ahankar, then the creation of the Tanmatras and the Panch Mahabhutas. This is Dravya, the material elements. Then the Gyan and the Karmendriyas, the controlling deities of these Indriyas. And the last creation of Sarga is avidya. So it is not explicitly mentioned, the process, but it is stated that avidya is the last creation of Sarga. Now we move on to Visarga. So Visarga has four parts in it, done by Lord Brahma, who's compared to actually the Lord because he's been empowered by the Lord. So the first is the creation of the 6 kinds of immovable entities. Then the 28 types of animals. 9 is the humans. And the 10th is the demigods and the 4 Kumaras. So important to note also is that these are just the categorization. These are not this is not the sequence. What is being indicated here is that in the Vaikarta or the secondary creation, these are the 4 category of creations, and they are also not comprehensive. They are indicative. So we will now dive down a little bit deeper into the process of Visarga. So Visarga is essentially the creation of the bodies of the Jiva from the Pradhan. And the elements of the Pradhan have been successively distilled. So the Pradhan had them in an unmanifested way. So they manifested, and after being manifested, they were recombined, and then we had the creation of the senses, the Mahabhutas, the subtle Tanmatras. Now these are now being recombined to create the bodies of the jivas. So there are unlimited number of bodies of the jivas, and each body has a unique combination, not only of how it looks, but the senses that it has, how it interacts with the environment. Then Visarga is the creation made by Brahma by his body and mind to populate the 14 planetary systems he had created. Now, even though the 14 planetary systems are created by Brahma, you notice that they were not included in the four Visargas. And the reason is that, as I mentioned, that it's not comprehensive. That part of the Visarga is essentially talking about the first bullet point, which is the creation of the bodies of the jivas. Now, one difference between Sarga and Visarga is that Sarga happens at the beginning of the life of Brahma, and Visarga happens at the beginning of every day of Brahma. So there is one Sarga, and then there are several Visargas that happen corresponding to each day in the life of Brahma. And so we know that Brahma has 36,000 days in his life. So he lives for 100 years, and each year has 360 days. So that's how many cycles of Visarga accompany each Sarga. And the result of this is the creation of the different varieties of living entities. And the purpose of it is that the conditioned souls, they get a body, they get some intelligence and senses to do what they want to do, either to pursue material desires or liberation or bhakti. Okay. So as we mentioned, that at the beginning of Visarga, Lord Brahma appears, and he uses the material in the lotus flower to create the planets in the universe. So before he can have the jivas enter into the universe, remember the universe is all empty. There's nothing in the universe save Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the Garbhodaka ocean, the lotus flower, and now Brahma. Excuse me. So first thing that he has to do is that he has to create a suitable place of residence, because the jivas can't just be in space. Brahma now, he's in Satyalok, he has his place of residence, but now he has to create for the other different varieties of jivas. So he creates a place of residence. Then he creates, or he manifests, avidya. So remember, avidya was the last creation in Sarga. And he manifests this avidya because without avidya, the jivas cannot exist in the material world. Without that illusion that they are not spirit but body, they cannot interact in the material universe. So he is doing the preparations. It's like sometimes you have a guest, you do the cleaning of the house, you do the cooking of the house, then you make sure that the room that he's going to live in has all the necessities. So Brahma is doing the preparation. He's creating the planets, then he's creating avidya, which is essentially the basis with which the jivas can enter and exist in the material world. Then as part of Sarga, Garbhodaksha Vishnu had expanded into the Virat Purush. He will use the the blueprint or the information. So we have noticed that the Virat Purush has all the building blocks coded within himself. The various senses, the objects of the senses, the interaction between the senses and the objects, all that has been coded within the Virat Purush. He will use this information to create various kinds of bodies, both gross and subtle. Because based on the desire of the jiva and based on what the jiva deserves, he gets a suitable body with different kinds of senses, different kinds of subtle aspects. In animal form, they have diminished intelligence. In plant form, they have almost no intelligence. Some bodies are suited for air, some for water, some for fire. So he is using all the information that the Virat Purush has manifested to create the bodies. So remember, there is no jiva right now, but he's simply creating. So you can say that he's looking at the architecture designs and making the templates. Now these templates will then be used to make the bodies. So if there is a plant, and let's assume it's an auto manufacturing plant, so the engineer comes in, somebody says, this is the architecture blueprint, which is basically a bunch of drawings. So they look at it and they make the molds and the dyes and everything else. And that's what Brahma is doing. Now later on, these molds will be activated and all the different models of the cars will be produced. That will be done later on. But creating of the molds is being done by Brahma. And then he will also provide the rules of existence. Right? So we have guests, you have to tell the guests also that this is acceptable, this is not. That you come to our house, you cannot smoke, you cannot drink, you cannot do this, but this is what we would like you should do. So in form of the Vedas, he is creating the items of knowledge as well as items of ignorance. And in addition to doing this, he will also manifest the personalities that will assist him in populating the universe. So this is Brahma's work program as part of Visarga. So in terms of creation, where are we? The Brahman had been created, and this is the gross material form. So earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the other coverings are there. So the entire material shell of the universe has been created. Virat Purush has been created. The subtle body. Brahma is being created, the soul, and Garbhodaksha Vishnu is there as super soul. So if you were to look at the universe as an entity, now the universe is fully sentient. So if you look at ourselves, we have these four components. We have a gross body, we have a subtle body, we have a soul, and we have a super soul. So the same thing in the universe. We have the Brahman, which is a gross material form. We have the Virat Purush, which is the subtle body. Brahma is considered to be the soul, and Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the super soul. So the universe is now ready to grow. Now when Brahma appears, he appears with a desire to create and control. That is his swabhav. Those are the impressions that he has carried based on whatever his previous lives activities were. There is a strong desire to create and to control. But when he appeared, so he appeared on the top of the lotus flower, but he could not trace the source of the lotus flower. Now, one thing also to remember here is that there is actually no lotus flower. We are basically using it as a notional presence. So it's not that there is a lotus flower with a stem somewhere, but when so that's where we talk about the concept of conceptual reality. Like we say that that our galaxy is like a dolphin, and we'll see some descriptions that in the sky there is a dolphin called Shishumara, called our galaxy. Now there is no dolphin over there. It just used to, in this case, it is used to indicate the shape of the galaxy. So the lotus flower is essentially used to indicate to give us some indication of the form and shape of the creation. So Brahma is there at the top, and he's not able to see where is he coming from. So he's looking around in complete darkness to see if there is anybody else or there is anything else that is going on. What more can I find out? That's why we say that even Brahma is born in the darkness of ignorance. And because he is moving his head around in the four directions, it is said that he achieved the four heads in terms of the four directions. Now, Brahma in his ignorance, he is thinking, who am I? Where have I come from? This is the Atato Brahma Jigyasa. These questions that we ask when we are endeavoring to make spiritual progress. And Brahma, because he is an exalted soul, right? As soon as he appears, he starts asking this question. That what is this lotus flower I am sitting on? That there must be something below it. So what does he do then? He goes down the stem of the lotus flower. And he travels there for a very, very long time, but not able to trace the route. So he goes back and sits firmly again. And at that time, he hears the word ta. And in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Krishna says that I was the one who spoke those words to you. So driven by his prior impressions, Brahma sits and begins to do austerities. Now here I'm intermingling a little bit between Bhagavatam and Brahma Samhita. That in Bhagavatam it is said that the word tap came. In Brahma Samhita it is said that he was asked to chant the Klim Gayatri mantra, the Klim Krishnaya Govindaya mantra, which was spoken by Saraswati, not his consort, but Saraswati, who is the consort of Lord Narsingadev. So this is the Tene Brahma Hridayadi Kavaya. So within the heart, he's given this instructions that chant this Gayatri mantra. Now, he whether tapa or the Klim Gayatri mantra or both, he faithfully follows the instruction and chants it with faith for a long time. And then, pleased by the austerities of Brahma, then Krishna, he initiates him into with the Kam Gayatri mantra. This is the second Gayatri mantra. Klim Kam Devaya Vidmahe Pushpanaya Dhimahi. So that is why it is said that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it manifests as all the Gayatri mantra. So the flute of Krishna, it is emanating the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And when it comes down to the Vaikuntha, it becomes the Gayatri mantra. When it comes down to the material world, it becomes the Vedic mantras. For some, it is the Om. But the original sound is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So now Brahma is twice born. That he was born once, and now he is born again because he has been accepted by Krishna as his guru. So now Brahma, he is enlightened. And when Krishna initiates him again, he also breathes the Vedas. So not only is he connected to Krishna in the disciplic succession, but he also receives transcendental knowledge, all kinds of knowledge, not just transcendental. So in the Brahma Samhita, actually, right after he receives the Kam Gayatri, then he starts. Then the first verse he recites after that is Chintamani Prakar Sadmashu. Then he starts reciting the prayers. So these are the prayers of enlightenment that come from the mouth of Brahma after he's enlightened by Krishna and the knowledge of the Vedas. What else happens? So pleased by the austerity of Brahma, Krishna, or at this point we're talking about Garbhodaksha Vishnu, so he shows Brahma his lotus feet by raising them. So now Brahma has no problem seeing the origin of the lotus flower. So far, he was endeavoring based on his material efforts and was constantly failing. But now he has Divya Chakshu. He has been benedicted by the Lord, so he has no problems. He looks down and he sees Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu reciprocates by raising his feet and giving him darshan of his lotus feet. He shakes hand with Brahma. So the relationship has this flavor of Sakhya, that he says, Brahma acknowledges it. He says, you've shaken hand with me as if I am your friend. Then Lord Vishnu gives Brahma a tour of Vaikuntha. And he gives him a tour to show the destination. Also to inspire him by the association of the residents of Vaikuntha. And he offers Brahma benedictions. That ask for any benediction. What is it that you want? So what does Brahma ask for? So because Brahma has that desire to create, so the first thing he asks for is that give me knowledge about yourself and your relationship with the material world. Because he wants to clearly understand that where does everything fit. He understands Krishna's position. He has a desire to create. So now he wants to understand what is the relationship between the two. And then we know in response to this, Lord Vishnu, he, amongst other verses, he recites the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam to Brahma. Then Brahma is also empowered to create. So Brahma prays for this, that please give me the empowerment to create. And then finally, he says that I need your protection so that I do not get overcome with pride. Because he knows that he will be creating the entire universe, the planets, the bodies, perpetuating the creation of the actual living entities. So it's easy to get overwhelmed with pride. Look what I have done. So Brahma wants to stay humble. So he says, may I always remember you and never get overwhelmed with pride. Lord Vishnu says, so be it. So Brahma is now enlightened, empowered, and protected. So he now begins his creation. So Brahma looks around and then he sees that the lotus is trembling due to strong, violent winds. So I had earlier mentioned that the Visarga, it happens at the beginning of every day of Brahma. So these descriptions are a little bit commingled. The violent winds are the winds of destruction that happened during the previous kalpa. And even though it's not clearly stated, but one can understand even during Sarga, there is a lot of agitation. And now Brahma, he's no longer intimidated by it. So because of the knowledge, because of the self-realization, because of the austerities, his mystic powers, he drinks the wind and the waters of devastation. Then Brahma divides the Brahman first into three parts: the upper, middle, and lower, and then into 14 parts. So we see the 14 planetary systems from Satyalok all the way to Patal-lok, and then into unlimited, because each one of them are planetary systems. Each one of them have unlimited planets. So in this way, he successively divides the Brahman into 3, 14, and then thousands. So now he has created the place of residence. So as of now, and the reason that he is creating these different places of residence is because jivas with different propensities, with different destinies, with different karmic reactions, will reside in different realms. Those in the mode of ignorance will go to the lower planets, mode of goodness will go to the upper planets, mixed goodness and passion will go to the middle planets, the most elevated beings will go to the upper planets. So he's creating different residences for different and for the different nature and destinies of the jiva. Now he's doing the preparation for the entry of the jivas. Now the jivas have already entered, but for the manifesting in the body. So he creates avidya, or more accurately, he manifests avidya that was created by Lord Vishnu and as part of Sarga. So this avidya is an aspect of Maya, and it is needed for the spirit soul to identify with the material world and the material body. So the world is composed of real and unreal. And the combination of this real and unreal, it gives the facility of the jiva to either enjoy or to make devotional advancements. So it's not that the whole thing is meant to keep the jiva inside, because pradhan is real, but avidya is unreal. Both of them are there. And the jiva has the free will to choose whether they want to use it for their own personal enjoyment or to make devotional service. So Maya has three divisions: pradhan, avidya, and vidya. So pradhan is essentially the 24 elements. It's called real because it exists even in the spiritual world. These elements are there. The difference is how they are used. But the pradhan is real, and we'll see more about it a little later. Now, avidya is a creation of the material world. It is not real, does not exist in the spiritual world, especially created in the material world to bewilder or illusion the jivas to enjoy in the material world. And now, interestingly, even vidya is a part of Maya. So we saw vidya as the fourth creation in yajna. when we talked about the Gyanendriyas. And the presence of vidya is to destroy avidya. So just like Maya Devi, she bewilders the jiva, she also liberates them. It just depends on how the jiva approaches Maya. So let's look at the impact of avidya. So avidya has two parts. One is called the avarnatmika shakti, and the second is the prakshepatmika shakti. Under the avarnatmika shakti, we have what is called the covering potency of Maya. So avarnatmika is covering, and parikshatmika is the throwing potency. So if you think about it this way, that the jiva is the spirit soul, but it needs to enjoy in the material universe. First thing to do that, the first step to do that is to forget that I am a spirit soul. Because as long as the jiva is in that platform, it will always be confused. I'm a spirit soul. What am I doing in this material body? Why am I hankering after this material things? So the first aspect of avidya is the avarnatmika, which is forgetting the true identity of the self, ignorance of the swarup of the jiva. This is known as tamaha. Then we have the parikshatmika, which is the throwing potency. What does that mean? Once you forget something, then a new identity is given to you. You have forgotten your spiritual identity, but you need some identity. So a new identity is given to you, and that is the parikshatmika. So you forget that you are soul, and now you have been given a material identity. And this has 4 components. Moha means that first the jiva begins to identify with the material body. That this is me. I am the body. This is aham. Then mahamoham. Mahamoham is that in addition to the body, you become attached to that which your body is attached to. So your body has a tongue, your tongue is attached to food. So you now become attached to food. It's mameti. So aham is I and mameti is mine. That everything that is related to my body is also linked to me. So that is called mahamoha. Now tamashram is the corollary, that if you're attached to something, then you will be upset when that attachment is impeded. So that is tamashram, that you have a hatred or repulsion when the enjoyment is obstructed. And antatameshwaram is fear of death. So it is an aggravated form of tameshwaram. Tameshwaram, you may have hatred or repulsion to other people, other things, that this person has taken what belongs to me. Antatameshwaram is that ultimately death takes away everything. So that persistent fear of death, even if the person for some reason has no enemies, has nothing to obstruct his enjoyment, death will still take it away. So these are the 4 kinds of covering that Maya will apply on the jiva, so that he considers himself as the part of the material world. They are known as the Pancha Agyan Vrittis, explained in the Bhagavatam. So these are given as part of Sankhya in Kapila, and they also correspond to the kleshas given by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. So Tama is forgetting one's spiritual identity. It corresponds to avidya in the as a klesha. Then Moham is thinking that you are the body, and it corresponds to asmita, which is false identity. Then the false sense of ownership, mahamoham, it corresponds to raga. And tamishram is anger at the obstruction. This is dvesh. And finally is antatamishram, which is fear of death. This is abhinivesh. So the reason this correspondence is made is to establish a tattva, that since the elements of the agyan and kleshas match, so understanding is that these two are the same because the components match. If the components match, the whole have to match, which means that agyan vrittis and kleshas are the same. Now, we already know that kleshas are suffering. So if the components of the suffering are the same as the component of the kleshas, so we can know that the ignorance is the cause of suffering, because these are agyan vrittis and these are kleshas. So if on a component wise the agyan vrittis are the same as kleshas, which means agyan vritti is the same as klesha, which means ignorance is the cause of suffering, which also means that vidya, which removes ignorance, will also stop suffering. So this is where, this is the segue into vidya. So all this is not there to put us down into a dark hole and keep us there. But if we make this equation, that yes, the components of agyan are the same as the kleshas. So we know that if you reverse agyan, the kleshas will go away. And the way to reverse agyan is through reversing avidya, which is by vidya. So this is where we get our way out of the material world. So this is a it's a highly summarized form of how does avidya liberate. That everything in this world is a combination of these four things. So the objects are either real or unreal. If they are real, they're either permanent or temporary. And if they're unreal, they're either experienced or not experienced. What is real, permanent? Shabda Brahman and Param Brahman. And these are the examples. What is real and temporary? The material world and the conditioned jivas. They are real and temporary because the jivas are eternal, but the conditioning is temporary. If that was eternal, there would be no hope for us. And material world is real, but we know it gets destroyed and created. So these are in the category of real. Unreal is what is experienced, and like dreams and magic, and what is not experienced, which is daydreaming, mental speculation, and imagination. Now, these are just to give you an example. So dreams experienced, meaning a person is dreaming, then whatever the dream is happening, the person experiences that. If the person is being killed in the dream, he feels scared. Similarly, magic, you sit in the magic show and the person makes the bird disappear, you see the bird, you experience that the bird being disappeared. Similarly, in our life, there are many things that are unreal, but we actually experience it. The impact of lust, anger, envy, these are all things that are unreal, but we experience them. We can say that yes, I have personal experience with it. Not experienced is further down the food chain, which is mental speculation. That not only is it not real, but you're not even experiencing it. Like you're just imagining things to happen. That a person is imagining that God is impersonal. A person is imagining that he is God. Person is imagining that there is no world, and the whole world is a concept of somebody's illusion. So, for the devotees of the Lord, the movement is from right to left. That is the That is the influence of vidya. That firstly you move from unreal to real. So that is why we are given all this. Why are we given this knowledge about the material world? Why are we doing this discussion of sarga visarga? Because we are moving from unreal to real. We are understanding that this material world is real, maybe temporary, but Krishna creates it. We get an understanding of the jiva. Yes, the jiva is real. Conditioning is temporary. So we are moving away from this where the general populace lives, based on their own speculation, based on their own experience, sensual experiences. That is the first movement. Second movement is from temporary to permanent. And once you understand it is real, then you move from temporary to permanent. This is the function of vidya. That is how vidya works. It will take us from here all the way to here. That is the real purpose of the creation of the material world. So after the avidya was created, Lord Brahma, he is very unhappy. So he's doing it as a service, but he's created all the snares and all that. He has also created, there's vidya also, but he knows that the predominant populace is going to be staying in the unreal. So he's very unhappy. And in order to counteract it, he creates the four sages, Sanak, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumar. And they respect and they represent the four aspects of vidya: Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, and Tapa, all supported by Bhakti, of course. And Brahma creates them so they can preach how to become free from avidya. They're technically considered part of both Sarga and Visarga, because even though they are created by Brahma, Brahma meditated on the Lord while creating them. So the understanding is that they're created by the Lord through Brahma. So that's why they're considered to be part of both Sarga and Visarga. So what happens next? The four Kumars are created. Brahma requests them, go forth and have children. Something is going on. Sorry about that. But the four Kumars, they are unwilling because they want to pursue spiritual path. So at the disobedience of the son, Brahma is angry. But he's trying to control it because the four Kumars, they are doing the right thing. Now, it's not what Brahma wants, but they're still doing the right thing, so he cannot chastise them. So this anger that has manifested and that he is trying to control, it appears from between his eyebrows as a child that is mixed with blue and red. Blue and red is the colors of ignorance and passion. Blue is ignorance and red is passion. So that's the nature of anger, mixture of anger, of ignorance and passion. And when the child appears, he starts crying and he asks Brahma, give me a name, give me a place of residence. And Brahma gives him the name Rudra, which means one who cries loudly. And he gives him 11 places of residence, gives him 11 names and 11 Rudranis. And then he puts the same request to them again, that please help me in populating this universe. So unlike the four Kumaras, the Rudras agree. And they have many, many offsprings that are like them. And these offspring create many other offsprings. But because they're created in this mode of anger, the nature of anger is destruction, they attempt to destroy whatever the universe is. There's not much in there, but whatever is there, they try to destroy, try to attack Lord Brahma. So then Brahma is disturbed when he sees all this. And then he calls Rudra and he says, please stop. Please stop all this. There is a time when I will need your destructive energy. So for now, you situate yourself in austerity. So the Rudras agree, and then they depart to perform penances. So it's not that the Rudras were disobedient, but they were just acting according to their nature. So we have the 4 Kumars, now we have the Rudras. Then Brahma creates the 10 Manasputras. So these are the 10 direct descendants of Brahma that he creates from his various body parts. Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pula, Kratu, Bhrigu, Vasisht, Daksh, and Narad. And Marichi and the others, they represent Karma, Gyan, Vairagya, Tap, and Astang. And the 10th son appearing at the end is Narad, representing Bhakti, also representing that any of these endeavors can become successful only because of Bhakti. So all these endeavors that are manifested by the 9 sons of Brahma are successful because of they have a component of Bhakti, but it's Mishra Bhakti. Then Brahma, he manifests sage Kardam from his shadow, who's the husband of the great Devahuti. And their son is Lord Kapila, who would preach the science of Bhakti in the form of Sankhya. Now, Brahma manifests the different elements of avidya. So from his heart, he manifests lust and desire. From the space between his eyes, he manifests anger. From his upper lip, greed. From his mouth, speech. From his anus, abominable activities. From his back, adharma. From his front, dharma. So the various elements of avidya are manifested. And further creation goes on. So Brahma is disgusted with all these aspects of avidya, and he throws off that body of ignorance, which means that throwing off the body means that he throws off their mentality, their conception. And the yakshas and the rakshas appear and they take possession of that body. He then creates the demigods. He also then gives birth to the demons from his buttocks, who are very fond of sex. And they actually try to copulate with Brahma. And then he evolves the Gandharvas and the Apsaras. Then from his sloth means laziness, he evolves the ghosts and the fiends. And from the hairs of his body, the snakes and the serpents. And in this way, different, the sadhyas, the pitas, the vidyadharas, siddhyas, Himapurush, and kinnaras. So this is actually what the Visarga was talking about. Now he is manifesting the different kinds of body types. The 6 kinds of plants, and the plants are recognized as those in which the sustenance goes vertically up. So they eat from their roots and the sustenance goes. The animals have horizontal sustenance. So they are horizontal, they eat and the food remains at the same level. They're described as foolish and ignorant. Then the humans have vertical sustenance, but going up to down. The plants are down to up and the humans are up to down. And they're in the mode of passion, always busy in their miserable life. And then the 8 types of devas. Now these are different from the Adidevas. So the Adidevas are called Prakrit and these are Vaikrat. So we have talked about Vayu and the Digdevas that had appeared along with the Tanmatras. Those are Adidevas. These are 8 types of devas. So remember, none of them are actually appearing now. These are just the bodies that are appearing. And this is just further description. The 6 kinds of plants, the 28 kinds of animals, 8 kinds of humans, And so there are eight kind of devas, which include the yakshas and the rakshasas, who are in the mode of ignorance, the devas in the mode of goodness, and the daityas and the danavs, mode of ignorance, gandharvas and apsaras, bhut and pishach, the sadhyas and the pitras, and the siddhas, charans and the vidyadharas, and the kimapurashas and the kinnaras. And these creations will then have many sub-varieties. So in the Vishnu Puran, it's mentioned that 900,000 aquatics, 2 million trees, 1.1 million reptiles, 1 million birds, 3 million animals, 400,000 humans, giving 8.4 million species. So all these body types that are created by Brahma, they are capable of perpetuating themselves through sexual union. So he's setting the stage for the third creation. After Sarga and Visarga, the third creation, he's setting the stage for that. Now, after creating these body types, Brahma has a bit of a distraction. So Maitreya says that we have heard that Brahma had a daughter named Vak. And the Acharyas say that it happens to some Brahma sometime. Does not happen to our Brahma, does not happen all the time, but it's a very rare occurrence, but he's still describing it. That he had a daughter called Vak, he became attracted to her, he started chasing her. So initially, the sages and his sons, they came to dissuade him, but they could not. Then they prayed. And because of the mercy of the Lord, then Brahma, he became ashamed of his distraction and he gave up that mentality. So the reason Maitreya mentions is because we can learn from this incident discrimination that one should not follow others blindly, even if the person is as great as Brahma. That's why we have the three-way check of sadhu, shastra, and guru. So even if a sadhu, Brahma is definitely a sadhu, but if there is something that he is doing that does not tally with the shastra, then we need to go to the guru and get clarification. Then disrespect. One should not disrespect great personalities, because we have this understanding that when Brahma was doing this, then the six sons of Marichi, they disrespected Brahma. Because of that, this had to go through so many hellish conditions. So do not disrespect great personalities. Then danger in one's own life, that if somebody as great as Brahma can get distracted, then we have to be extra careful. Then the fact that Brahma recovered. So it's not that he gave up his service and abandoned everything, but he recovered. So Krishna is always there to protect his devotees. So ultimately, it's showing the power of devotion, that we are fallible, Krishna is infallible. So if we get bewildered, the devotees around us will give us their mercy, and when the devotees will give their mercy, then Krishna's mercy will come. So now, enthused by that, Brahma continues with further creation. And this point is made that from that point, Brahma is now creating Vedas. So we won't go through this, but this is just the different Vedas that are appearing from his eastern, southern, western, northern mouth. Not only the Vedas are appearing, but the different aspects of knowledge. Then different kinds of the varnas and ashrams, they are appearing from his four mouths. And the Puranas, from all the faces, the Puranas, Itihas, things like Danam, Tapam, Satyam, the Bhubhava Swaha, the Gayatri, so they're appearing from all the four mouths. And then from the body of Brahma, everything that is needed to worship the Lord, pursue culture, literature, the Anustup meter, the different meters in which the Vedic hymns are sung, then the art of communication, writing, all that is appearing. So this is part of Brahma giving the rules, and by which the entities that are going to be living in this universe can interact with one another and also make progress if they so desire. Then after this, Brahma creates Manu. So he accepted another body and engaged himself in the matter of further creation. So Brahma saw that despite all that he has done, the universe is still empty. So what does he do? That he now creates Swayambhavu Manu and Shatrupa, that they appear from the contemplation of Brahma. And they now become, they take on the reins of the creation from Lord Brahma. So this is the end of Visarga. Visarga ends with the appearance of Swayambhavu Manu. So with the creation of Swayambhavu Manu, the Prajapatis that have been created, they're very happy. So this is the end of Visarga and the beginning of what is known as Nitya Srishti. So Manu and Shatrupa, they will nourish the universe in two ways. So one is that they will introduce the performance of yagyas. So by the performance of these yagyas, then the demigods, the Prajapatis, they will be nourished. And they will themselves marry and have progeny, who will have further progeny. So they will also set into motion the creation of the subsequent entries in the spiritual world. So I'll pause over here and see if we have any discussion, any comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Prabhu, one question that comes to my mind, maybe I missed it, I'm not sure, but the Virat Rupa gets created before Brahma does his austerities of tapa, when he hears the word tapa?
Yes, the Virat Rupa is created as part of Sarga.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So, yeah. And Prabhu, this Avaranatmika and Parikshatmika, those two things, like first is that we forget our identity as the servants of the Lord, and the second is that we have to take the just is my understanding correct, that taking the false identification means that is Parikshatmika, throwing potency.
Yes, forgetting and assuming. So Avaranatmika is you forget who you are, and Parikshatmika is that you assume a new entity.
Okay. And Prabhuji, this the first that the Kumaras, the four Kumaras, are they Vishnu Tattva or
they are Jiva Tattva, but there is not much description again. But yes, they are considered to be part of. So not everybody created by Brahma is also created by Lord Vishnu, right? He is Jiva Tattva. So the four Kumars are also Jiva Tattva.
And the Rudras are definitely Jiva Tattvas, right, Prabhu?
They're considered to be Shiva Tattva.
Oh, they are Shiva Tattva.
Expansions of Lord Shiva.
And Prabhu, one more question that comes to my mind is about like just when Brahma appears, his first day of Brahma starts. So meaning it starts with the Satya Yuga in the beginning of like when Brahma appears from the level of the lotus. So meaning in the beginning of Satya Yuga, on the first day of Lord Brahma, all this creation happens. The whole complete creation happens.
Yes. Okay.
And then this the conclusion of Visarga happens just when Manu, like this slide says here, all the Prajapatis and the Manu and Shatrupa, they are created. After that, whatever creation is happening from Prajapatis and Manu and Shatrupa, that is the next level of creation.
That is called Nitya Srishti. We'll talk about that. But yes, Visarga concludes with the appearance of Manu. And then after that, the Nitya Srishti or the ongoing creation happens. So we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just a continuation of that is that so we know the Visarga happens on every day of Brahma, the beginning of every day of Brahma. And after every Divya Yuga, that's a Nitya Srishti. After every day, every Divya Yuga, then there's a partial annihilation of the creation, and then and the Satya Yuga, then again things reappear. The following Divya Yuga. So that is a Nitya Srishti, part of that.
No, Nitya Srishti is you may want to mute your Nandgopal Prabhu. You want to mute your microphone? Okay. So Nitya Srishti is basically the ongoing creation that is happening every moment by the combination of the male and the female forms. Partial annihilation does not get it's just part of Nitya Srishti. It's not given it's not a distinctive phase there.
And another question, Prabhu. We have this flat Earth theory. Would you be able to just briefly say what is that? Is it Earth is flat, or is it Bhumandala is same as Bhuloka, or Bhuloka is the Earth and Bhumandala is the level of the earthly realm? How to understand this? People are talking about the flat Earth, even in our ISKCON devotees.
It's a bit of an involved subject, Prabhu. When we do the fifth canto, I deliberately stayed clear of it. When we do the fifth canto, then we'll do a deep dive into this. They're almost like scientific words. So I think I would like to set the proper context before I kind of go deeper into it. I might say something wrong otherwise.
Sure, Prabhu. No problem. And there's one more thing, just one last thing is there's a mentioning of fourth order of creation in Bhagavatam. And is that part of this creation that we are talking about, or is it something different?
It's part of the creation. So the title of the creation, the title of the chapters have to be looked in the context of what the chapter is speaking. It's not that much in terms of Sarga Visarga. It is more in context with what the chapter is speaking. I remember the title of the chapter. At this point, I don't remember the contents of it, but it does not indicate that there is yet another fourth order after Sarga Visarga and the Nitya.
Because I remember you mentioning the Vidya as a fourth of creation. After the Vidya and other things, and the Vidya comes at the end. So I was thinking that is one of the things. But anyway, I'm just speculating here. I can wait and later on, whenever we have chance to.
I can check it. I know there is a chapter titled The Fourth Order of Creation, but like I said, I don't at this point remember what the contents is. Okay, anybody else? Questions, comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, few questions, Prabhuji. Like you mentioned, Maya has three parts, like Pradhan, Avidya, and Vidya. So, and further there are types. You have given part of Avidya as Avarnatmika and Prakshepatmika, and then further the same thing is divided. So these types like Tama, Mohamandal, so they are manifestation of the Avidya, Prabhuji, or which is done by Brahma, or they are just a part of the Avidya which is already there before Brahma as part of Sarga?
So my understanding is that Avidya is created in its entirety by Lord Vishnu. And what Brahma does is that, he takes that and he manifests it. And it's a little esoteric. It's difficult for me to understand that Avidya is such a, it's a nebulous thing, right? It's ignorance. It's very nebulous, very subtle. But obviously there is something going on. That the subtle Avidya is created, and he takes the subtle Avidya and manifests it in another subtle form. But there's no description that I've read where it said that Brahma takes the avidya given by Vishnu and divides it into these two and further divides it into further parts. The closest I've seen is saying that he manifests the avidya that was created by Lord Vishnu.
Sure. One more question to in the avidya section, you explained ajnana vritti and kleshas. When based on the understanding and your explanation, they are looking exactly same, Prabhuji. Is there any difference why two words are given means are as two categories? Is there any difference, Prabhuji, by mentioning as with as ajnana vrittis and kleshas?
So they're related in terms of cause and effect. So when Patanjali is talking about in the Yoga Sutras, he's talking about the manifestations, that this is the manifestation, asmita or abhinivesh. This is the manifestation of, and he talks about it only from the perspective of manifestation. What the acharyas do is that they link these manifestations to the cause, and they establish a cardinality. There is a one-to-one cardinality. So if the cause and effect are one-to-one, which means the cause is non-different from the effect. So that's why they basically establish this, that avidya is the cause of kleshas, and the reversal of that is vidya is the cause of the removal of kleshas.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, one more question, like the Vidya section, in the objects, there are real, unreal. So this segregation is to a large extent, is it physical, Prabhuji, or it is only categorization for our understanding, like permanent, temporary, experienced, not experienced?
So it is, so the categorization is factual, but it is based on perception. Right. So when we say that the conditioned jiva is real but temporary, that's how we categorize them. That's how the conditioned jiva looks at himself: temporary and real. When we say the material world is temporary and real, that's how a jiva with some level of enlightenment, right? Because you remember this was more on the left side. So with some level of enlightenment, we'll say, yes, this material world is real. It's not that I'm living a dream within a dream, kind of a thing. So that's how it's been categorized, basically to illustrate the effect of vidya. That by the effect of vidya, you move from the extreme right, which is unreal, imagined, to the extreme left, which is real and permanent.
Yes, Prabhuji. A last question, Prabhuji. In the beginning of the class, you mentioned that the lotus flower on which the Brahma sits, so that is not literally like a lotus flower is there. So that is given for our understanding. So because at one point I was hearing there is a lake in the navel of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and from there a lotus sprouted. So can you please a little bit elaborate, sir? Is it mean that there is I was so far thinking there is literally a lake in the.
Not sure about the lake, but the understanding is that if somehow you were able to travel in the universe out, you're not going to see a lotus flower, right? So these are basically conceptual reality, that they're used to explain a concept using an item that you're aware of. So we know what a lotus flower looks like. I mean, the example that I gave is of the galaxy shaped as a dolphin, right? They'll say that you'll see a Shishumar,
Yes.
You'll see a dolphin there. There's no dolphin there, but the dolphin is used for helping that these stars are shaped like a dolphin. But obviously, there's no lotus flower there, right? Because then there would be subsequent questions that if Brahma is using the material within the lotus flower, then is the lotus flower perforated? Does it Does it become limp, or do the alternate petals disappear? It's not that. So there is the creation that has been, the material creation manifested from the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu appears in the shape of a lotus flower. Brahma uses it and then creates the planets, etc.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just a comment. In the same light, they said that these 4 planetary systems appear in the stem, but we know certain place it says it's not in the stem. It's just because it's from top to bottom, it says in the stem, no?
They do say, yeah. So it's basically used for us, like I said, to understand. And it's not a big deal one way or the other. I mean, if you think that there is actually a lotus flower, that's fine too. It does not take away the tattva. So the point is not stressed either way. Okay, so moving on. So at this point, we have an active populated material world, right? So we have this, and really speaking, so we have this picture over here. Really speaking, at this point, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he moves away from here. He goes from here to the Satyalok, because now the lotus flower is there, the universe has been created. So Garbhodaksha Vishnu takes Anant Shesh and he goes to Brahmalok, and there he is worshipped. But let's assume this is now the universe that has been created. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the sequence of creation is that first avidya, then the creation of animals with 5 joints, the aquatics, then the plants and trees, immovables, snakes, the reptiles, then animals, birds and beasts, the 8 kinds of devas, the 4 kumaras, the rudras, the manasputras, which is the 10 sons like Marichi and Narad. 10th creation is the humans, and then finally the creation of Manu. So the first creation is the basis of the subtle basis of the metal existence, which is avidya. Then 2 to 6 and 10 is the creation of the bodies. So when we say creation of animals, he's not creating animals. It's not that Brahma is creating cows or buffaloes and they're coming out and going somewhere, but he's creating the bodies of those animals. So this is all the way from 2 to 6 and 10. So again, Brahma does not create any humans. He's creating the body of the humans. Then 7, 8, and 9 are actual personalities that are created. So 4 Kumars, actual people, Rudras, Manasputras, and Manu. They're actually created. And then the Manus will use these creations that have been done, and they will basically perpetuate the existence. So in this way, the material world is created. These are just some facts that are interesting. How long does it take Brahma to create? So this is given in Surya Siddhant and the Siddhant Shiromani, that 3 Chaturyugas plus 1/2 of Kali Yuga less than the 4th Chaturyuga, which is, if you trust the calculation here, which I do, which is 17,064,000 of our years, or 47,400 years of the demigods. That's how long it takes Brahma to create. Then some lessons, reversals in the service of Brahma. We saw that first was disappointment. He could not understand the reason of his existence, and he addressed that by concentrating his mind on the Supreme Lord. Dissatisfaction after creating avidya, purification, that he meditated on the Lord and countered by creating vidya, the 4 Kumars. Disobedience, so they all start with D, the reversals. Disobedience is the refusal of the 4 Kumars, and the result is that he was momentarily overcome by anger. He didn't carry it. He didn't go after the 4 Kumars to keep complaining about it, but the anger was channeled in the creation of Rudras for later destruction. So he was able to make the best of a bad situation. Disturbance caused by the Rudras, he redirected them to the appropriate time. Then disruption by the Asuras, Yakshas, and Rakshasas. and this Bhagavatam says that actually he went and took shelter of the Lord. And the Lord asked him to give up that mentality, which he did, which he said, this is an interesting philosophical point that we don't have time to discuss, but the synopsis is that reversals are because of anarthas in ourselves. And if you give up that anartha, the reversals will go away. Distraction by Vak. He had a beautiful daughter and he was distracted by her. Then felt remorse and corrected himself. And the important thing is that he continued with the service. And then deficiency, that he saw that despite everything, there was not enough in the creation. And he absorbed himself in contemplation and then created the manus. So in this way, the cycle of creation and destruction happens. So there is the Prakrit Srishti, which is the primary creation of the universe of Mahavishnu, which is the birth of Brahma. And then there is the Prakrit Pralaya, which is the death of Brahma, the destruction of the 24 elements. So all that we saw folding out folds back into Pradhan, and Pradhan goes back into the body of Mahavishnu. Then there is Naimitik Srishti. So this is the secondary creation, which is called Brahma's daily creation. And there is a Naimitik Pralaya. So this is the destruction of the gross body of the living entities up to Dhruvaloka. It takes place at the end of the day of Brahma. And then there is the Nitya Srishti. So this is the creation that happens of the individual bodies by karma through other living entities. Right? So this is basically the living entities coming together and uniting in a conjugal rasa, and then having offsprings. And there is Nitya Pralaya, which is the daily destruction of the individual bodies by karma. So the entities that are born from Nitya Srishti, they are destroyed by karma. And this is a cycle that is going on continuously. So outer cycle, inner cycle, it is going on, this creation of Prakrit Srishti, Naimitik Srishti, Nitya Srishti. For every Nitya Srishti, Nitya Pralaya, Naimitik Pralaya, and Prakrit Pralaya. So there are three kinds of pralayas, destructions. So the Prakrit is by the influence of time, and this is the end of Brahma's life. The Naimitik, which is daily, is because of the material elements, and this is at the end of Brahma's day. And the Nitya is because of the modes of material nature by one's own action. This is the life of Brahma. This you are all familiar with. The important thing to note over here is to get us a sense of where we are. So 100,000 human years is 1 second of Brahma. The entire life of Brahma is 1 nimesh, half a breath of Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu is a portion of the expansion of Krishna. So where are we and where is Krishna? So it gives us a sense of our position with respect to Krishna, and what an honor it would be to get an opportunity to serve him. So philosophical question, why does Krishna create the material world? So to deliver the entities by his compassion and stop the entities' birth, death, and their materialistic life. That is the real reason why he creates the material world. Also, so that the conditioned souls can cultivate sense gratification or liberation by their desires. It's also an acknowledgement of the free will of the jiva. And while they are indulging in their desire, they can hopefully attain liberation. So 3 reasons, so that the jivas can attain material enjoyment, attain material enjoyment, they can pursue liberation, or they can execute bhakti and go back to him. So this is a little bit of a, well, I guess it shows that one might question that after having thrown into the material world, how can material world offer liberation? So the acharyas analyzed this verse from Bhagavad Gita, It's famous verse, Man manabad madakto madhyajimam namaskaru. So mat manaha. Mat mana is the 4 antakarans, the 4 subtle elements. Mat bhakta is the 10 indriyas, the 5 karmendriyas and the 5 gyanendriyas. The mat yaji is that excluding your body, whatever is there in the world, you offer it to me. So this is the 5 tanmatras. Mat namaskru is offer your body, the panch bhutas. Being my devotee is anything other than bhakti. So this verse has the 24 elements of pradhan. Essentially what the verse is saying, if you take these 24 elements of pradhan and become my devotee, which is offer them to me, what will happen? That Krishna says that I will give myself to you. So that is ultimately Krishna's promise, that he will give himself to us. And we have all the arrangements within this world to go back to him. So this is the end of Visarga. I know I'm running a little bit short of time. So instead of pausing for questions, I wanted to do the last, which is a short representation, which is a summation of all that we have discussed so far. And we can probably go through it quicker. Now, what do you see on your screens? Do you see the summation of overview, or do you still see the old one?
Summation of overview.
Okay, so we have the right slide there. So this is again, we did 4 presentations. We talked about the incarnations of Krishna, talked about the spiritual world, talked about Sarga, talked about Visarga. We just now summarize it to give a bird's eye view. So Krishna originally resides in Goloka, right? We saw that in the spiritual, when we discussed the spiritual world, that with his various associates, various rasas, Krishna is residing in Golok. And he expands in the mood of Aishwarya, and he comes down to the Vaikuntha as Lord Narayan. And then he comes down to Kailash Dham, then there is the Brahma Jyoti, and then there is the Devi Dham. So this is the structure of the creation. Krishna is originally in Golok Dham, Vaikuntha, then the abode of Lord Shiva, the effulgence, and then we have the causal ocean, and then where we are right now, Devi Dham, which is the object of this discussion. And Krishna, along with Balram and the Adi Chaturvyu, resides in the Krishna Lok. Then as Narayan and the second Chaturvyu and their expansions resides in Vaikuntha. And as the Purusha avatars, he resides in the Devi Dham. So that's how Krishna is manifesting himself through the various expansions in order to create the material world. Now, all this is being done by the desires of Krishna. So even the secondary creation of Brahma is being done by the energies of Krishna. So everything is happening by his desire and energy. So even though we are far separated from Krishna, but we are never separated from Krishna. So we talked a little bit about Krishna's energy, that he has the Chitta Shakti, which is the Antarangni Shakti, Jiva, which is the Thast, and the Maya Shakti, which is Baharangni. Then he has Sandhini. I'm not showing Samit and Haladini just because we don't have enough space. But then we discussed that the influence of Chitta Shakti on the Sandhini Shakti, it creates the spiritual world, and the influence of the Maya Shakti on the Sandhini Shakti creates the material world. So this is the creation of the world, the structure, the material that is created. And then we saw that Krishna has Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. By Krishna's Ichha Shakti on Jiva Shakti, the eternal associates of Krishna appeared. And then now this is the spiritual world. The creation, the planets, the structure of the spiritual world, and the inhabitants of the spiritual world. Now Krishna's Jnana Shakti on Jiva Shakti creates the Devas and the humans. And Kriya Shakti on Jiva Shakti creates the Asuras. So now this is the material world that is created. So this way you discover how the energies of Krishna are manifesting the worlds. Then we talked about Sarga. Then for Sarga, Krishna expands to Mool Sankarshan, Narayan, Mahasankarshan, and then Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu appears, he lies on the causal ocean, and he goes into Yoga Nidra. Then, with a desire to create, Mahavishnu, he breathes and he glances. So by the breath of Mahavishnu, innumerable seeds of universes appear. Mayadevi takes charge of them. These combine to become the Pradhan. And the Pradhan is undifferentiated combination of the 24 elements. By the glance of Mahavishnu, Lord Shambhu takes charge or personified by it. The glance contains Kal, Swabhav, and Karma. Kal and Swabhav are manifested by Jiva and Kal by Lord Shiva. So the glance essentially contains the Jivas and Lord Shiva. Then by the combination of the glance and the breath, we have Lord Shiva and Parvati Devi, Amba Vishwanath. They result in the further transformation of the Pradhan into Mahatattva. So the Mahatattva being agitated by Kal, Swabhav and Karma, it gets acted by the modes. In the mode of goodness, Mahatattva appears. In the mode of passion, Sutra Tattva. In the mode of ignorance, Ahankar appears. And then Mahatattva appears as Chitta, as consciousness. Sutra Tattva appears as Prana, the energy behind all activities. And Ahankar is further acted upon by the modes. In the mode of goodness, Jnana Shakti appears, which is the mind, the controlling deities of the 10 senses. In the mode of passion, Kriya Shakti, which is intelligence and the 10 senses. And in the mode of ignorance, Sarva Shakti, which is the 5 elements and the 5 tanmatras. So essentially this is, sorry, I pressed the wrong key. Essentially this thing now is the building blocks of the universe. We have the matter, we have the environment by which the jiva can interact with matter. We have the deities that will help in this interaction. We have the driving force. Chitta is your way back. This is the Vasudev Tattva by which one can make spiritual engagement. So both arrangements are there to live and enjoy and also to go back. So elements are created, they are unmixed. So now the elemental devas, they pray to Lord Vishnu. He enters in the mode of passion, and by the mixing of the elements, the Brahman is created. So now from Pradhan to Mahatattva, Mahatattva to Brahman. The Brahman is empty, 7 layers, each 10 times bigger than other. And for 1,000 years, the Brahman lay passive in the causal ocean. And then Mahavishnu, he enters into each one of them as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. By his perspiration, he fills the lower half of the universe and lies down on his expansion, Anantashesh. And then for one kalpa, for 1,000 year cycle of 4 yugas, he remains in a yoga nidra. And then he simultaneously enters into the 23 elements in the form of time and amalgamates them. So amalgamates means that now he's mixing them. And now by the effect of this amalgamation, the Virat Roop appears as a plenary portion of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So the Virat Roop is the Lord's Chitta Shakti, and by this the elements perform their functions and contains the blueprint which we use by Brahma for further creation. In the Virat Purush, he lived for 1,000 years in the Garbhodaka ocean. Now we have the second glance of Garbhodaksha Vishnu at the jivas in his abdomen. He realizes that they are anxious to engage in fruitive activities. So in a subtle form, the lotus flower appears, which contains the jivas, and at the top of the lotus flower, Lord Brahma appears. So now that Lord Brahma has appeared, Brahma is going to use the material in the lotus flower to create the planets. So thus he is creating a place for the jivas to reside in. He creates avidyas, which is the basis of the existence of the jivas. He will use the blueprint of the Virat Purush to create the various bodies. And he will provide the rules of the existence of the Vedas and other items of knowledge. And he will also manifest the personalities to further populate the universe. But before that, he has to perform austerities. So he performs austerities for a very long time. He is benedicted by Lord Vishnu, and he is given the transcendental knowledge to create. So then Brahma now begins with Visarga. So he creates the planets, and in this way he's creating the place. He creates avidya. So that avidya is the handover from sarga to visarga, and it's an aspect of Maya. It is needed for the souls to identify with the material world and the body. It's composed of real and unreal, and it gives the facility to enjoy or to practice bhakti. 4 Kumars appear, then the Rudras appear, then the 10 Manasputras appear, Narad Muni appears, Brahma manifests the elements of avidya, further creations by Brahma, creation of the various body types by Brahma, creation of the various elements of knowledge, sacrifice, cultural advancement. Then Brahma creates Manu, which is the conclusion of Visarga. Manu does 2 things. He establishes yajna, and then he also manifests offsprings that will now further multiply. So all the material worlds are now created. The purpose of the creation, again summarizing, is for the Bahirmukhi Jiva to get a place for enjoyment and hopefully at some point become satiated by this enjoyment and pursue liberation and execute bhakti. Final purpose is for the jivas to go back to Godhead. Okay, so this is the end of the summation. I went quickly because you're all familiar with it, but I wanted to give a sense of the end-to-end process. I'm sorry I'm a little over time, but we can pause here and see if there's anybody who has any discussion or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So just to clarify, so up until Swayambhuva, Manu and Shatarupa, they were there. So all those living entities were still in the stem of the lotus at that time. I mean, they were all still waiting.
They're still waiting, yes.
Hare Krishna.
Quick comment, Prabhu. It will take many lifetimes for me to, understand this, and you have done such a wonderful job in 4 sessions. I don't know how I can thank you for this. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Prabhu, and thank you for your blessings.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to clarify. So the souls, the jivas, they are stored in the belly of Karuna Dakashaya Vishnu or Garbha Dakashaya Vishnu?
So we studied in Sarga, right, that they're initially within the body of Karnodakshaya Vishnu. When he glances at the Pradhan, then they leave the body of Mahavishnu and they enter into Pradhan, causing it to get converted to Mahatattva. When Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters into the Brahman, then each Garbhodakshaya Vishnu carries the portion of the jiva destined for that particular universe with him. And then within each universe, they remain within the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu until the time is right for them to manifest. And then they manifest and they continue with their Nitya Srishti, with their ongoing creations.
Thank you. And also you mentioned that one breath of Mahavishnu is life of Brahma. Did I understand correctly?
half a breath, because when he exhales, that is the life of Brahma. When he inhales, Brahma dies. So half a breath of Mahavishnu.
Okay, so what about that time when Brahma was not yet created? For example, he started to exhale, and all of that happens. That Pradhan and
yeah. So it's not very clearly given that what is that time that is elapsed. Now we are given like snapshots of it, right? That when the Brahman was created, it stayed in the water for 1,000 years, and then when when Garbhodaksha Vishnu entered for one kalpa, he stayed on the Garbhodaka ocean. Then the Virat Purush appeared for 1,000 years. He remained in the water of Garbhodaka ocean. So there are different snaps of time given, but there is no, at least I couldn't find that anywhere where it says that this, from the time that Lord Vishnu exhales till the time that Brahma appears, it's X million years or whatever. There doesn't seem to be any authoritative statement over there.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. It looks like in chapter 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says a few times that Brahma left his body and acquired a new body. During that time, there was no any destruction of the world?
Well, that's given, the understanding given to us is that when it says that Brahma gave up his body, it's not that he dies. The understanding is that he gave up that mentality.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because Brahma lives for 100 years. His lifespan is fixed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. That means Krishna go through all this trouble, because I will use this word that Srila Prabhupada used, that you have put in the, like, we are rascal, because of our desire, he had to go through all this trouble and create all this just to satisfy us.
That is true. So that's why we study all this, because then we understand the compassion of Krishna. That we rebelled from him, but instead of just saying that, okay, go and suffer, he does all this so that we can enjoy. But he also makes sure that while we're enjoying, there's always the opportunity for us to go back to him. So when we do that, then we get a sense of how compassionate Krishna is. That's why Prabhupada would say that that as we know more about Krishna, it is natural that we will get to love Krishna more. And these are the reasons that Prabhupada made those statements.
And then all these gradation of sensory pleasure, several type of universe for different level of pleasure. This is incredible. Krishna.
It's incredible. Krishna manages everything effortlessly, right? So you don't see Krishna like sweating to make this happen or running around. He does that. He does that while he's happy, while he's doing rasa dance in Goloka. So we get a glimpse into the greatness of Krishna.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu, for taking all this effort to do that. It's really, and as Nandagopal Prabhu has said, it's a monumental task to put all this together. And I would like to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So before I forget, I also wanted to say that all these presentations I'll share with the group. So I'll put them, there's a website that a devotee is maintaining for me called bhayaridas.com. They will be uploaded there. I'm still working on the references, because I did promise that I will also give the corresponding references to the points made over here. So along with the references, they will be uploaded over there, and then you can download it right from there. So I'm thinking maybe in a couple of weeks they will get uploaded there. Like I said, I have the references, but I have to align them to the points that are made. But feel free to go there and download these. So there'll be the slides, and the document accompanying the slides will have all the references to the slides.
How long did it take, Prabhu, for you to do this?
Difficult to say, Prabhu, because it's something that I was working on the side. So, I mean, I generally make notes whenever I do. So I have had notes forever, but then I started making the PowerPoints, etc. I do want to acknowledge the immense help that I got from the devotees from two particular set of devotees. One is from ISKCON Coimbatore. They are the one who prepared this Golok chart, and I'll make that also available. Only thing is it's copyright. So of course I'm violating their copyright by giving it to you, but I'm asking you not to violate their copyright by further giving it to other people. But they did an outstanding job, creating these nice pictures, with very clear adherence to what Srila Prabhupada says. So that's very helpful. And the second is the Govardhan Eco Village, the Bhakti Vidyapith. They have actually a set of lectures called Vedic Cosmology that talk about this. So I took a lot of, I got a lot of help from both these. I do want to acknowledge that without either of these, it probably would not have been possible for me.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Like all devotees are saying, like it is so beautiful, and it's a huge task. We feel, at least I feel ashamed, like we are taking so much effort for us, and we are doing minimalistic of our sadhana and still struggling there. But thank you very much, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, if anything I can assist, like I was going through the videos, Prabhuji, like I'm repeating your class. So is there numbering of the videos also? I feel is important, because just this whole overview, it's 5 classes. So with the naming, we couldn't enter the right this thing. If I can assist.
Definitely, Prabhu. So we can work on something. It'd be good if we can make it cogent, have the video and the PowerPoint and the document aligned to one another.
Sure.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. So any other questions, thoughts? Okay, no. Thank you. So with this, we'll conclude. For those who are part of the Bhakti Vaibhava, Wednesday we will continue with Canto 3, Chapter 27. For all other devotees, I wanted to thank you for giving me your valuable time, giving me your association and your blessings. So we'll stop here. Prem Kishore Prabhu, you wanted to...
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very, very beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you so much. And please, I beg for your prayers and blessings that somehow this can help me see Krishna around me in the material creation. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I can relate to Krishna. I can understand the Sambandhi Gyan properly. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glories to Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji. The presentation was very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Prem Kishore Prabhu, you want to say something? No? Okay. I guess I saw him unmute him, so I thought he was going to say. Okay, so we'll stop. Yeah. Vancha kalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhu vyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Bye. Hari Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hey.
Glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.